Okay, hello everyone. Today we're going to be going over a short film called La Poeta del Ring. This is the story of Laura Serrano Garcia. The English translation of La Poeta del Ring is Poet of the Ring, the Poet of the Ring. But this story is it's a true story, and it's about a woman who is the first women's champion from Latin America. And this short story takes place right before her first fight in Las Vegas against a woman who was already champion. And so her very first professional fight was against a champion, and it ended up in a draw. A lot of people consider her a pioneer of women's boxing in Mexico, considering that she was the first woman to fight from Latin America and she was the first women's champion from Latin America. More specifically, this short story has more of a metaphorical depiction of a woman entering into a man's world. As you can see from the title and the cover itself, it's her standing in the middle, light shining on top of her, and a bunch of men surrounding her. This short film, if you have not seen it, it's about 12 to 15 minutes long, and it takes place in a very dark or dimly lit bathroom, but it's a men's bathroom. And due to her nerves or potentially something else, my guess is it's nerves, she's vomiting in a urinal. Urinals are only found in men's bathrooms. And throughout this, she gets approached by a little girl to sign boxing gloves in this bathroom, and so she signs it, but the father with the little girl is kind of hesitant to even let her do so, or is like not so proud of her because the little girl's like, I want to be a boxer just like you. And obviously the dad probably doesn't believe it because it's like, well, why would women box? This is a man's sport, most likely, and it has been for many, many years. And so I believe that the bathroom is a metaphor for a world that is extremely dimly lit. You can't really see too many possibilities in front of you until you're like right up on them. And so, as the story is told through her lens, we follow Laura. And so she gets surrounded by a bunch of men during at times, and she's like pushed up into corners, and she's pushed out of the way, and she's called racial slurs due to her ethnicity and things like that. And it's not very welcoming as a whole. And so it is a metaphor for how she was unwelcomed into the boxing community, and she was never believed in. And so prior to her boxing career, she was studying to be a lawyer. But during this time, I'm unsure of what led her to fight, but it's likely due to the fact that boxing in Mexico was illegal for women and that it was not a women's sport. And so she wanted to prove something, that women could fight, is my perspective. So the question here that I asked is like, what did it change, right? So she goes out and she fights. She probably didn't get paid. She likely didn't get paid for her fight. She wasn't necessarily recognized on a grand scale for her fight, and maybe it was only a niche community who actually supported her. But way down the line, it definitely changed a lot because women's boxing was gradually getting more popular and then became more welcomed. And I believe in 2021, there was a Mexican female boxer who participated in the Olympics. And so I'm assuming that Serrano is probably a big influence on her as well. But ultimately, it didn't change anything immediately or even potentially during her career. For the span, I think her last fight was sometime in 2007. She first fought in 1994. Her record was, I believe, 17-4. But like during the span of her career, it probably didn't change a whole lot. It may have pushed the needle forward in terms of women's boxing and to get more people involved in it and actually pay these women, recognize them as legitimate fighters, and give them a chance. Even though today the women are still not paid as much as the men when it comes to boxing, and that could be for numerous reasons. But regardless, that's my analysis of La Puerta del Ring. I believe that the bathroom is a metaphor for the world that is extremely dimly lit. You cannot see possibilities in front of you until you're right there, and then especially for a woman, you have to adapt to a man's world, and so this way you're using urinals to vomit in, so to speak, or you're moving your way throughout a men's locker room when all the men are around you and they're pushing you out of the way and they're calling you slurs. And yep, that is the conclusion of my analysis of the story, of the short film of the story of Laura Serrano Garcia.